Wait, do you guys hear that? I think we're in a filler episode, but is that really that bad? I mean, listen, Naruto is 40% filler. That's kind of why I used that track to open this video, because let's be honest, when you think of filler in an anime, you often think of Naruto because of just how many filler episodes there really were in that show. And I'm not really looking to talk about Naruto or even fully compare Dragon Ball to Naruto in this case, because I just have a weird question. Why does Dragon Ball Z's filler work so well when something like Naruto is often complained about for the quantity and, let's be honest, quality of its filler? I think the first thing that we have to get out of the way is what filler is and what it isn't. Because a lot of people seem to think that filler is just when the main story, the overarching plot, is not pushed forward by an episode. Let's look to Dragon Ball Daima and the episode where they meet those giants in the Demon Realm as an episode that people would commonly refer to as filler. That's not filler. What filler is supposed to be when you talk about an anime series is that it's material that doesn't come from the manga and is used to pad the anime in order to build some extra time for the animation staff to keep behind the manga. Give the manga time to get a little bit of a head start and get some content ready for the anime staff to then adapt. Now, this is less of a common practice nowadays. Most anime are seasonal upon release now, allowing the manga a big gap of time to fully get a bunch ahead before they finally get an anime adaptation of those arcs or stories. But back in the day, anime used to be this weekly, recurring, constantly happening thing. It just didn't stop. And for a lot of anime, that only ended recently. I mean, One Piece just started going seasonal now after 1,000 episodes. This is just how shows were back then. And because of how fast-paced an anime is compared to a weekly manga, well, the anime would inevitably get ahead of the manga. So how do you fix this? Well, you fill the gaps. You start making shit up. And then, honestly, that just buys you the time that you need for the real good content to actually be made so you can adapt it into your series. Now, filler quality is like a whole different conversation. It's not necessarily quality that matters when you're talking about filler, but it's how it feels like it fits into the broader story and world of the anime series. Because you have to assume that a lot of people watching an anime are not readers of the manga, and because of that, they don't have any sort of basis for what should and shouldn't be there. So the more natural it feels, the better. Now, in terms of filler in anime, there's something that a lot of people overlook, which is that filler is not just filler episodes or arcs or stories. Filler can just be the scenes that are added that weren't in the manga, whether that be extending a fight way longer than it took place in the manga. A good example of this is Majin Vegeta versus Goku, which is like a few pages in the manga, but it's like a full-blown battle in the anime. A really cool fight, but it's supposed to be a side piece in the manga. It gets completely expanded in the anime. There's also something famous, like character reactions to things, or saying lines that are kind of unnecessarily saying exactly what you're seeing in terms of what's going on in a fight. This happens a lot, again, in Dragon Ball and One Piece and other shows like them. They need to buy time in these episodes and extend it, so maybe 1 or 2 chapters can fill a whole episode instead of needing 3 or 4 chapters to fill a whole episode, which honestly is pretty possible if you just follow the source material as closely as possible without changing anything at all. But that's not what I'm discussing in this video. I have a question about the filler arcs, the filler stories, the made-up stuff from Toei. Why in Dragon Ball Z, and honestly even original Dragon Ball, does this material work so well? Does it fit so seamlessly into the anime series? Well, I think there's some pretty good reasons for that. Ow, my back. I really need a new chair. Thankfully, Flexispot is sponsoring this video. With the dream team of the C7 Max chair and the E7L standing desk, I can work sitting or standing with no worries about discomfort. For the desk, the motors and build quality allow it to lift 330 pounds without wobbling, and the 3-leg design supports a height range from 25 to 50.8 inches, meaning it still works for even some taller people. You can even customize the look of the desk with the chipboard and bamboo desktop options, and you could also get some organizational accessories for the desk itself. Personally, I use an L-shaped desk to give me more room for things like my consoles and my notepads without giving up my multi-monitor recording setup. With the programmable buttons, you can easily switch between your perfect standing and sitting height. And for when you are sitting, there's the C7 Max chair. It has a footrest for lounging, 5D armrest to get your perfect arm position, a 3D adjustable headrest to lock in perfect posture, custom seat depth for the memory foam cushion, and a height adjustable backrest which features sacrum support that automatically supports the lumbar and sacrum at the same time. With their 30-day money-back guarantee, as well as a 10-year warranty on the chair and a 15-year warranty on the desk, you know you're in good hands with Flexispot. So click the link below and remember to use code Carthu50 for $50 off your purchase. To quickly clarify, I know the title says Dragon Ball Z, but I really want to talk about Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z when discussing this. Also, some of these aren't filler arcs in the sense that they are an overarching story with one centralized villain or plot line that progresses each episode, but some of them are arcs that encompass a period of time where the events are just sequential, but not necessarily connected overall. So with that out of the way, what arcs are we even talking about? In original Dragon Ball, there's the 2 training arcs that take place over the 3-year time skip before another Tenkaichi Budokai, and also the wedding dress filler to end the entire series with. In Dragon Ball Z, you have things like Garlic Jr., the 10 Days of Peace before the Cell Games, and the Otherworld Tournament as examples. Now, all of this isn't even including the other sorts of filler story arcs or storylines that are littered throughout all of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z has some famous examples like the training before the Saiyans, or the Great Saiyaman arc being greatly expanded from its manga version, and things like that, where new story is made and introduced, but it's slotted right in next to canon events, so you don't really notice it as much. Again, it feels seamless, which is, like I said at the beginning, the main goal of good filler, I think. It's supposed to feel like it's not intrusive or interrupting the story at play. You don't want to turn on an episode next week and all of a sudden be somewhere else, a different time, a different character, a different story that we're following. Going back to Naruto Shippuden for a second, I'm thinking of the filler episodes that take us back to when the cast of characters were still kids, like during the time of Part 1 Naruto as opposed to Part 2. And it feels just so out of place with the broader story that doesn't really happen in Dragon Ball. And I think that's part of why Dragon Ball's filler works so well. And for the actual filler arcs, this is even easier to slot into the story because of something that Toriyama did, though likely inadvertently. You see, Dragon Ball is littered with time skips. You may be used to shonen anime that have a time skip, and it's called the time skip, after the time skip. In Dragon Ball, we don't have the time skip. Usually if people do say the time skip, they're usually referring to one of 3 major ones: the 5-year time skip between Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, the 7-year time skip between Cell and the Buu Saga, or the 10-year time skip between the defeat of Buu and the end of Z. So even with just these, you can see that Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z have some major time skips, more so than other shonen manga do. But even beyond that, you have various 3-year time skips, 1-year time skips, a year and a half, 2-year, like you have time skips galore in this series, to the point that I made a video covering the time skips over on my main channel because they're kind of interesting to talk about the events that actually took place in these periods of peace or little activity. But for Toei, it's not a period of peace or little activity or nothing to worry about. They get the opportunity to fill the gaps. This is the perfect opportunity to slot in a story that still feels like it makes some semblance of sense with the broader narrative at play, because it's in between story arcs and in an amount of time that something realistically could have happened. So when you have the Otherworld Tournament in the 7-year time skip, it doesn't feel too out of place, does it? When you have a training arc between the Tenkaichi Budokais and whatever arc came before them, well, that makes sense because that's what Goku was told to do anyway, so we might as well show what that training was like, even if it's not necessarily what Toriyama had in mind when he was thinking of Goku's training during this time period. This decision by Toriyama to have fast time skips in his manga actually gave Toei the opportunity to create believable filler. Filler that people to this day say, man, that didn't feel like filler to me. And the things that do feel like filler to them are the things that aren't actually filler, like some of the Great Saiyaman stuff, which a lot of that is from the manga, even if it has been expanded for the anime. So to me, it actually makes it a bit strange to look at these other shonen manga and see that they didn't copy these various time skips that Toriyama did. Maybe they didn't realize the beneficial impact these things had on an anime production, or maybe they didn't care for the story that they were telling. But it's clear that if they had noticed it, we might have better feeling anime filler for series like Naruto and One Piece and various others that I'm not mentioning in this video. I think something else that also helped the anime filler, specifically in Dragon Ball Z, is Toriyama's character designs and ideas that he gave to the anime staff. I know this isn't filler, but Toriyama did redesign Bardock for the Bardock special that would come out, and then later used that design and setting of Bardock facing down Frieza in the manga via a flashback in the Frieza saga. Yes, that flashback happened in the manga after the anime special. It's referencing the anime special. This just shows Toriyama's consideration for the anime and also his consideration for the ideas that he gives to the anime and how he incorporates them back into his own work. Like in the Otherworld tournament, which I keep talking about because it's one of the fillers that works, I think, the best out of all of them. And it's because Toriyama designed Pikkon, and he also, more importantly, designed the Grand Kai. Now, the Grand Kai goes on to be mentioned just in passing in the Buu saga, in the manga as well. So this makes a loose connection between the anime filler and the actual events that happen in the manga, leading to the anime version of the Buu saga feeling more interconnected with the filler that happened before it. Obviously, Toei went a step further and then reused a lot of the Otherworld tournament characters and settings in the Buu saga itself later on, but still this idea of Toriyama being the one to contribute and thus adding legitimacy and authenticity to the subjects that are being added in these filler concepts. I mean, even something as crazy as the Saiyan Sifurian War, or as you might call it, the Saiyan Tuffle War, is something that actually is not mentioned in the manga at all. But it was an idea that Toriyama gave to the anime staff alongside designs. These designs were directly used in the Dragon Ball Z flashback scenes referencing the Saiyan Sifurian War. And later on, the Saiyan Sifurian War was the basis of Dragon Ball GT's arguably best arc, the Baby Saga, which is crazy if you think about it because it makes the Baby Saga feel more legitimate because it has such a deep and rich Toriyama connection. I think so many other weekly anime would have killed to have this level of interaction with their mangaka. Even if Toriyama's contributions weren't the biggest in the world, they were spread out evenly enough that it made these contributions feel significant and help for the authenticity and good vibes that come off of the filler that's in Dragon Ball Z. I think it's so important to not overlook this, and I almost did. This is re-recorded. I can't tell. Can you tell that I look different? Anyway, back to the old recording. Now, I am gassing up Toei here, and now, aside from me being a manga purist and not loving filler necessarily because I feel where it deviates from Toriyama's vision, again, as someone who's a manga purist, I see it more seamlessly. I also see that they probably didn't go far enough if you really think about it. I mean, they had a 5-year time skip to work with between the end of Dragon Ball and the beginning of Dragon Ball Z. They don't do much with it. The wedding dress filler is a few episodes, and then we get one episode at the beginning of Z that's mostly filler, but that's it. If they really wanted to pad out some time for themselves, they had 5 years to do it. Make up something for Goku to go fight. Dead Zone didn't need to be a movie. It could have been an arc. Maybe something a bit more expanded to fill the gap between Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. It's actually a bit of restraint that they continue to have, because later we have an even bigger time skip, the 7-year time skip. And what do we get during that? We get the Otherworld tournament, which is great. It's a ton of fun. The power scaling is a bit wonky, but it is a ton of fun to watch that storyline play out. And it really expands the afterlife and the world of Dragon Ball in an interesting and I'd say kind of meaningful way. But think about it, what else could have been shown in this 7-year time skip leading up to the Buu saga? I mean, it's kind of crazy that Toei didn't take the time to give themselves more padding, more runway to finish out Dragon Ball as best as they could in the end, because instead of that, what had to happen was a ton of filler fights in the Buu saga itself. Base Vegito versus Buhan doesn't happen in the manga. Hell, Vegeta and Goku versus Buhan before they fuse doesn't happen in the manga. There's a ton of fights with Kid Buu that don't happen in the manga, and that's all because they didn't buy themselves more time during the 7-year time skip when they actually had a valid opportunity to do so. It's actually a surprising amount of restraint, and even more so when you realize that Toei's cash cow, Dragon Ball Z, was about to end. So they were scrambling to make their own sequel series. Anime only, no manga being adapted, and the story, because it's on a weekly schedule, and GT came out the week after Dragon Ball Z ended, they had to rush to get this story written and finalized so that way they could get it into production. But they didn't give themselves a lot of time to do it, now did they? Toei knew there was a 10-year time skip before the final chapters of Dragon Ball Z, but they chose not to use those 10 years. This is the most incredible amount of restraint I've seen from an anime studio who needed time, needed to buy time for their animators, their writers, and everyone, and instead, they choose not to use this glorious 10-year time skip, the biggest time skip in the original manga. They don't touch it at all. No filler, nothing. Now, in long term, that probably was better for them, because obviously the 10-year time skip has now been filled with a whole new series, Dragon Ball Super. But at the time, I can't imagine being in the Toei offices and discussing whether or not we're going to create some filler after the Buu Saga, so that way we can lead up into GT a bit more slowly, a bit better, and have a better plan for it going forward. The restraint is genuinely impressive. I do think overall, Dragon Ball Z had a very unique circumstance that allowed its filler to thrive when a lot of other shows don't get that same opportunity. It's a combination of how they seamlessly expanded stories like the Majin Vegeta fight or the Great Saiyaman section of the Buu Saga, and how Toei was given the opportunity to weave stories in between arcs due to various time skips existing in the Dragon Ball manga as a whole, and how Toriyama's own contributions to the anime helped the filler feel more authentic. It's a unique and beautiful situation that I don't think we'll ever really see again, as series go more and more towards manga accuracy in their anime adaptations, and they go more towards the seasonal format to better achieve that manga accuracy in the long run. I do think this is better for the animators especially, and the staff on these projects, to not have these weekly crunching deadlines every single episode. But we do lose something, don't we? Something I thought was pretty cool at the time. Don't forget to click the link below and check out Flexispot. Remember to use my code Carthu50 to get $50 off your purchase, and leave a note saying Carthu no Dojo sent you. They also have the C5 chair and the E7L light desk for those of you on a budget, and the new C7 Morpher chair in case you wanted the upgraded lumbar support and upper backrest. But that's all I have to say. Have a good one.